Joining us now from the State Department, the U.S. Ambassador to Afghanistan, Ryan Crocker. Mr. Crocker also served as Ambassador to Iraq and Pakistan. He is the recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is our highest civilian honor. Ambassador, it's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure to be here, Megan.
This is devastating news out of Afghanistan. Clearly, the U.S. military, the U.S. government, and the American people are upset about what this one rogue soldier did. But it is adding to a growing sentiment in this country that we need to get out of there and get out soon. The latest numbers show that 60% of the American people think the war was not worth its costs, and 54% of all Americans want our troops out of Afghanistan, even if the Afghan army is not ready to carry on the fight. Are they wrong?
Megan, I think it's very important we maintain our commitment, just as the President said a few minutes ago. The stakes are tremendously high here. 9/11 came to us out of Afghanistan, and as we carry forward our campaign to disrupt, dismantle, and defeat al-Qaeda, we've got to be sure that an environment never again exists where they can regroup, reorganize, and plan other attacks on the homeland. So, again, we're moving as fast as we can to effect an orderly withdrawal and drawdown of our troops while ensuring that Afghan national security forces are able to carry the load. And I think we're making substantial progress. Yesterday's event was horrific, but it was one soldier out of 100,000. In no way does he represent the ethics and the morality of the American serviceman and servicewoman, and I think Afghans understand that.
Prior to 9/11, al-Qaeda was provided a safe haven in Afghanistan and by the Taliban. We went in and changed that situation dramatically. Give our viewers, many of whom are sick of this war and sick of seeing American blood and treasure spilled on the stands of Afghanistan, give them a feeling for what will happen if we do pull out of Afghanistan earlier than the President has already scheduled us to pull out.
Well, first, Megan, I understand that people are tired of this war after a decade. You know, I'm tired too. I've been deployed to Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq going on 7 years now since 9/11. So, believe me, I understand what feeling tired means. But these are the stakes. If we decide that we're tired of it, that we don't want to do it anymore, well, the Taliban isn't that tired, and al-Qaeda, badly damaged, would be able to regenerate if the Taliban took the country over again. And we would then have another pre-9/11 situation. Megan, I was in New York on 9/11, stuck in traffic on the Queensboro Bridge, and I watched those two towers come down. The reason I've been in this fight for 7 years now is never again. We can never again run that risk. We can never again run that threat. We're just going to have to draw on our reserves of strategic patience and be sure we hand over responsibilities in the coming few years to Afghan national security forces that can carry the fight forward to prevent a Taliban resurgence and the inevitable return of al-Qaeda.
Can you speak to Hamid Karzai's reaction to the latest events? Now, I know you're in a difficult position. You're our ambassador to Afghanistan. You've got to deal with this man. But I think a lot of Americans were a little ticked off to hear his reaction to the act of one American soldier, after all the good our American soldiers have done over in Afghanistan, saying, quote, "This is an assassination, an intentional killing of innocent civilians, and, quote, cannot be forgiven." A statement that is almost certain to incite more, not less, violence in Afghanistan.
Megan, I'm not so sure. We have condemned, you know, these killings. They were horrible acts.
But cannot be forgiven, he says.
Well, we'll see. I mean, again, this is for him, for all Afghans, for all Americans, a horrific moment. But at the same time, we have seen senior Afghan voices calling for calm, noting that it was the act of a single soldier, not part of some barbaric policy. Afghans understand these things. They've been at this along with us for a decade. And I'm not sure we're going to see that significant a reaction. Again, I think Afghan leaders, including the President, have gotten out in front of this. The Ministry of Defense issued a statement earlier today saying it was the act of a lone gunman. Afghans don't want to see a resurgence of violence such as occurred after the Quran burning any more than we do. And we're working together to try and ensure that doesn't happen.
Let me ask you quickly. You say Afghans understand this, that it's the act of one rogue soldier. Is that true? Because I hear from our viewers, and they were outraged to see the retaliation against our American soldiers in the wake of that accidental Quran burning, and thought, these are the people we're helping? The Afghan army, in one instance, shooting American soldiers in the wake of an accidental Quran burning? What are we doing? Have we won the hearts and minds of the Afghan people? Is it possible?
Megan, I think it is. We have thousands of U.S. and allied soldiers embedded with Afghan troops every single day. They're there now. These incidents are horrific, but they're also rare. And I'd also point out, again, when you're fighting an insurgency, it is very difficult to have a 100% assurance that the insurgents don't somehow creep through checks and wind up in an Afghan army or police uniform. And in this connection, I'd note that far more Afghan troopers and policemen have died at the hands of Taliban infiltrators in the uniforms of the police or military than have American or allied soldiers. It's a problem for them. It's a problem for us. We've got to face it and overcome it together.
Yeah. 1,900 American service members killed in Afghanistan, over 15,000 wounded since this war began, and there is a desire not to see any more bloodshed, but also not to have those men and women have died in vain. Ambassador Ryan Crocker, thank you so much for coming on, sir. All the best to you.
Thank you, Megan.